Here is Kevin Kennedy and Rich Herrera with an Inside the Dugout quick fix.
We've talked more about the Miami Marlins than I think we ever have in this podcast or any time that you and I have worked together over the last decade. Derek Jeter had a town hall meeting sitting down with Marlin fans. They had a fancy buffet. They brought people out. And then Derek Jeter comes out along with the general manager, Hill, to have a town hall style session where fans were able to talk to him about the ball club, and it was about as ugly as you could get. Then, today, down in a radio show in Miami, it's also on ESPN Radio, my former colleague, Dan Levitard, had the commissioner of baseball on and just flat out called him out and said, Commissioner, did you know that the Marlins were going to do this? Did you know that Derek Jeter was going to do this? Do you realize how bad you ruined baseball in the state of Florida? And the commissioner, I'm sorry, swung and missed because those answers were just not going to get by Levitard, and he did not give him a quarter. He did not give him an inch. And really, it was one of the most uncomfortable interviews I've ever heard, Kevin.
Yeah, and Rich, when you got me onto it and texted me today about it, I didn't see it live, but I did see the transcript of it later on, and I texted you back, and I said, oh, wow, this is unbelievable. Combined with what you said about Derek Jeter, I saw that whole town hall transcript as well last night, as a matter of fact, and then this today. It's really sad for the Miami Marlins fans. And one thing I will say about fans, Rich, and I said this about Tampa Bay, rather than rip the 20,000 fans that don't show up in a place, you'd rather, or I would at least, rather talk about the 20,000 fans that do show up in a ballpark and say, hey, good for you fans. Hopefully the club will do something to draw more, whether it be Tampa Bay or Miami. And that's the way I feel about it. And I don't know if they're going to have 20,000 fans next year or if they've lost at least half of those by what we've heard the last couple of days.
So part of last night, people are going, hey, Derek, why are you tearing this ball club apart? Why did you trade Giancarlo Stanton? Why are you tearing down the payroll? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I'm going to paraphrase Derek Jeter. He's saying that, these are contracts we inherited. We're trying to build this thing. We're trying to make this financially feasible. We have to jettison some of these contracts. We need to rebuild this ball club. Now, Skip, I called this a couple weeks ago. And we're the first to say, and I haven't heard a lot of other people say that, the Marlins were a championship caliber club up until that fateful morning when they lost arguably the best young pitcher in all of baseball. When Jose Fernandez died, it really kind of just took the whole franchise and moved it in a different direction. But the pieces were there. The pieces are there with that ball club, that with that outfield that you had of Yelich, Ozuna, and Stanton, one of the best young catchers that is underappreciated, Real Muto. You had an infield that was good enough to challenge for the National League East.
You really did. You're absolutely right, Rich. And I go back to 2016 when I saw those Marlins and the infielders of Echeverria at short, a Gold Glover. D. Gordon turned into a Gold Glover at second base by Perry Hill. Justin Bohr turned out to be an all-star last year. Third baseman Martin Prado, who was really a good acquisition for the Marlins. JT Realmuto, one of the most probably unrated catchers in Major League Baseball on a national scale. This guy's a 290, 300 hitter. He can run. I don't mean just run for a catcher. He can run. And he's got power. He's a good defensive catcher. He's a good thrower. You mentioned the outfield. They had no holes as far as everyday players, 8 everyday players. The question was asked yesterday, and this answer by Derek Jeter really got me. One of the fans in the town hall asked Derek Jeter, why did you do all this? Why did you sell off the players? And the core of our lineup was fantastic that you and I just talked about. And Derek Jeter said, we need pitching. And what pitching was I going to go after? Well, here's what pitching he could have gone after. What's wrong with Jake Arrieta? What's wrong with Yu Darvish? What's wrong with Alex Cobb? And what's wrong with Lance Lynn for starters?
I could find an ace to put on that ball club to win right now. So I don't know where you buy we need to rebuild this. We don't have the talent. You had the reigning MVP of the National League. You had Ozuna. You had Yelich. You had Real Muto. You had Justin Bourne at first base. You had enough pop. You had a bullpen. And what you're missing was an ace. I think of all those pieces, Kevin, you tell me if I'm wrong, they were 90%. I'll even give them 80% of the way to be a challenger to get into the playoffs with what they had on paper the day the Derek Jeter's group took over.
Inside the Dugout with Kevin Kennedy and Rich Herrera can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and RadioInfluence.com.